What is up, enthusiasts? It is Cedar Flags here, and welcome back to another one of my videos. So this past August, I had the pleasure of visiting an area of the United States that I have not previously been to, New England, with beautiful mountains, historic classical cities, and some great roller coasters. And I feel like this area of the United States is pretty overlooked compared to some others. But nonetheless, I think this area has a great roller coaster collection, and a pretty underrated park collection as well, with tons of charm and some pretty good rides. So let's get into some of my favorite roller coasters in the region. In fact, I've probably ridden most of the major roller coasters in the area, and today I wanted to rank them. This is Cedar Flags, and today I will be counting down my top 10 roller coasters in New England. Coming in at the number 10 spot is the small but mighty Polar Coaster at Storyland in New Hampshire. This unique Hopkins creation is a very weird but fun roller coaster within itself. The station and plaza are beautiful, and on top of the station, you have a little bit of an observation deck, which I think is a great idea. Anyways, the ride itself has a beautiful theme, beautiful station, and the ride itself pulls some of the craziest laterals on any family coaster I have ever experienced. If you go on a good day, this ride will fly through its layout, and you will be pulled from side to side on each turn of the ride. Such an underrated gem that you need to check out for yourself. Going from northern New Hampshire to the southern half of New Hampshire, we go to Canopy Lake Park to talk about Untamed. This Gerstlauer Eurofighter has a great presentation in Big Bear Plaza, has a beautiful looking station, and a great aesthetic to it. The layout itself is great too. Though it is a copy and paste layout, I still do admire the elements, including the vertical lift, the beyond vertical drop, and the collection of inversions it has. My only real complaint with this ride is the fact that it can get a bit jittery, especially during the second half, and most of all, the helix. But if you can get ahead of that, this will be a fun ride, and I definitely think it's a great ride, especially for this park and the setting that it's in. Coming in at the number 8 spot, we go from New Hampshire to Maine's very own Funtown Splashtown, USA to talk about Excalibur. Their headline coaster in the back of the park is a CCI wooden coaster, and it definitely provides some pretty good forces. The theming of this ride is beautiful with that medieval theme, the setting in the woods is also beautiful, but the best part, this ride's laterals. I think this is the part of the ride that really stuck out for me, because this ride provides some very good unbanked turns, which led to some really good laterals, and I love laterals, especially recently. I cannot get enough of this ride. This was a quality ride, and a great ride in the state of Maine. So, do I think Excalibur is the best roller coaster in the state of Maine? Well, I thought that for a little bit, and then I rode Sea Viper at Palace Playland. I think this is the best coaster in Maine just by a tiny bit, and for a few reasons. One is that beautiful setting right on the Atlantic Ocean, and two, the laterals. This ride has crazy laterals. In fact, it is some of the craziest laterals I have ever experienced. I don't really know how to describe it. The layout packs a very compact layout mixed with a lot of unbanked turns, and this unique Preston and Barbieri creation definitely surprised me at the end of the day. Going to the number 6 spot, we have the first of 3 roller coasters on this list that will be at Six Flags New England, and it is their 2002 B&M floorless coaster, Batman the Dark Knight. Now, this has got to be one of the most underrated floorless coasters I have been on in my life. And even though this was meant to be one of the shorter floorless coasters, it feels exactly like some of the bigger ones out there, like Dominator and Kraken. The elements including the dive loop and the vertical loop are some of my favorites of its genre, and the corkscrews at the end of the ride are definitely extremely forceful as well. But even though the quality of this ride is incredible, it still doesn't make my top 2 at the park. But that will be later on the list. Coming in at the number 5 spot, we have the first of 3 wooden roller coasters in a row. We are starting off with Quasi's very own Wooden Warrior, the headline attraction of this park, and it is very short and sweet. Now, looking at the layout, you may think, this looks pretty tame. It's not too tall, it's not too fast, and it's not too long. But looks could definitely be deceiving, especially with this ride. This prototype coaster provides some great ejector and floater throughout its layout, and every single hill has a little bit of a kick to it, or is even a flat out ejector moment. Though this ride is short, it definitely packs an extreme punch for what it has to offer. When you're in the general area of Wooden Warrior, you should go down the road and also check out my number 4 coaster in New England. It is Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce, also in Connecticut. This ride interacts with the terrain so well, and when people mention a terrain coaster, this has one of the most notable examples. It has a great setting right in between the lake and the hills of Connecticut, and I really think that this ride does the setting extremely well. The layout is pretty good as well. Even though it doesn't have the strongest forces on a ride like this, I still think it's a great and enjoyable ride, and it's pretty long as well. I think this ride's strong point besides its setting are the laterals, and I really think that overall, this is a great ride to check out if you're in the area. So, we are finally in the top 3, and going back to Storyland in New Hampshire, I want to start off this countdown with the one and the only Saurus, another Gravity Group wooden coaster. I love this ride to bits. Almost every single hill gives some amount of ejector, and if not, some pretty strong floater. It's also a very compact layout as well, providing some great lateral and positive forces throughout the layout. And I've ridden a few of these smaller Gravity Group woodies like Kentucky Flyer and, like I said, Wooden Warrior, but nothing comes close to the sheer amount of intensity and length that a ride like Saurus has. If you're in the area, you definitely cannot miss this incredible creation by the one and the only Gravity Group. Now, as you may or may not have guessed, the top 2 roller coasters are both located at Six Flags New England, and many people will debate on what order these 2 rides go to. But I decided that the number 2 spot is Wicked Cyclone, the RMC hybrid coaster at the park. Even though it isn't my favorite hybrid coaster by RMC, I still think it is an incredible ride filled with positives and airtime moments, and even some good hang time in that first and final inversion. My favorite part of this ride, though, are all of the head choppers and hand choppers with the supports when you're weaving within the structure. And every single hill gives some sort of airtime, especially that first Outer Bank turn, which has got to be one of the great RMC airtime moments of all time. This moment flings you out of your seat no matter where you are, and it truly is a great experience. On top of that, you have the great theming and setting of this ride, and even though this ride isn't in my top 10, it definitely comes close. But a ride that does make my top 10, Superman the Ride, is a must ride. And this ride is one of the greatest coasters I have ever been on, especially by Intamin, and my favorite coaster in New England. Let me explain. Starting off with the ride's layout, this has been said so many times, but I want to mention it once again. This ride's layout is phenomenal and one of the best in the world. It starts off with an out and back layout like a traditional hypercoaster, and then goes into this massive twister section, going in and out of tunnels and underground. It is just an incredible setting, and right by the river as well. This ride is stunning. On the ride itself, especially if you sit in the back, you are going to get so much airtime. I couldn't even count how much airtime was on this ride. It had to have been so much, whether it be some sort of floater airtime or straight out of your seat ejector airtime, especially during the end of the ride right before the brake run. From start to finish, this ride is just an incredible hyper, and if you haven't been on it already, I definitely recommend it at Six Flags New England. But more than that, I recommend coming to New England as a whole. This region has so many hidden gems and such great charm. If you're going to do a coaster trip in the Northeast, do not forget some of the other parks in the video. Anyways, what did you think about this list? Let me know down in the comments below. But until next time, this is Cedar Flags, and I'll see you all later.